Hello and welcome to another episode of The Clever Dev. Today we're going to talk about the four different kind of styling syntax words that you may have seen in Material UI. We're going to talk about makeStyles, useStyles, and those are from Material UI version 4. We're going to talk about withStyles also, which is still available, but it comes from Material UI version 3. And we'll also talk about createStyles. So we've got these two buttons that look the exact same, and we've just styled them using the different syntax. So we've got the hook one, which was styled using Material UI version 4 syntax, which was made to work with Material UI hook. So I called it the hook button. We've also got withStyles here, which was made before React had hooks, and so we'll dive into that a little bit more. Before we do, I want to mention that the links, that there will be a link to this code in the video details, and also I actually have a link to a Udemy course, to a page on my blog that I keep the most recent affiliate offers, like discounts that that Udemy sends me for a particular Material UI course that has 40 hours of content. It's a really fantastic course. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee on it, so if you're not satisfied with it, you can return it. So I recommend that you check that out. And like I said, I'll have a link where you can get a deal from Udemy for that course. So with that said, we'll dive into the code here. So I mentioned that makeStyles is Material UI version 4 syntax for styling. So it's important to remember that because it's kind of like the right way, so to speak. I know Material UI just released version 5. I have not dug into that yet. A lot of people will still be using Material UI version 4, so for now we'll focus on this makeStyles. And so you see it here, and this is code sandbox that I'm using here, so sometimes it's a little bit too helpful. Anyway, so you see makeStyles here, and it is accepting this root class that we've created inside of it. You can create multiple classes inside of it, and you can also pass props to it, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a moment, but you can see that it's a relatively simple syntax. So makeStyles actually returns a hook. What we're doing with makeStyles is we're actually creating a custom hook. So if you look at the Material UI docs, you'll often see that makeStyles is paired with useStyles. So that's the second keyword, so to speak, that we're going to talk about. So useStyles, you see it all over the examples in Material UI, but there's not really an explanation of what it is. So what it is it's actually simply the naming convention for the hook returned by makeStyles. So you'll often see this const classes equals useStyles inside of the actual function that returns the component that we create, and it's simply the standard that Material UI uses. That's their preferred naming convention. So anyway, we create this classes object, and we're able to use it inside of our JSX down here, inside of class name. So we've got classes.root. So pretty straightforward with all that. And let's take a look at this export syntax down here. Notice it's nice, clean, and simple. We're going to compare that with the withStyles syntax here in a moment. You'll see the difference. So let's jump over to that. So this is the HOC component over here in the code, or the higher order button. That's the text I gave it because that's what we're doing, is we're creating basically a higher order component using withStyles. So up here where we actually have our CSS, or really it's JSS, CSS in JS, we're using JavaScript syntax to create our styling here. It looks very similar. However, we're just creating a simple object here, the styles object. So then let's skip over the JSX for a moment and go down to our export default. That's where we actually see the withStyles syntax. So we notice that it's accepting this styles component, and it's also accepting this higher order component. It's actually calling withStyles twice. That's what happens when you see two sets of parentheses, passing in one prop and then doing something with that, and then passing in the other prop. So what it's doing is it's actually making these styles available then to our higher order component. So we'll see, okay, we've got props, const classes equals props, So we're pulling classes out of props here with this syntax. So then in our return statement, the JSX looks very similar. We've got our button, and we've got class name equals classes.root. So very similar there. So that my take is that withStyles is just a little bit more verbose, like you see down here. It doesn't play with TypeScript in quite the same way. It requires just a little more code to play nicely with TypeScript. And we can see that down here. HOC component, prop types, we're saying that classes is required. So that's all very interesting to note. So I can see why, first of all, if React moved to a hooks syntax as the dominant or preferred syntax, of course Material UI is going to release a styling syntax that can take advantage of that. And second, their styling syntax is just cleaner with hooks over here in our hook component. So there's one more thing to look at then, because we've covered makeStyles, useStyles, and withStyles, but what about createStyles? So I mentioned TypeScript, and within TypeScript, then it can be difficult to get it to play with Material UI's styling syntax. So the Material UI team created literally this createStyles that I mentioned here. It's not referenced in my code. I don't have a code example of it because it's kind of funny to read the documentation on it. They literally say this function doesn't do anything at runtime. So after it's been compiled, there's no change, no difference. There's no real functionality behind it. What it does is we can see this code example here where we have makeStyles and we're wanting to use the theme, and simply this example is using createStyles as kind of a helper to please TypeScript and make TypeScript work well with Material UI styling. So I hope that really clarifies those four different syntax keywords that can be very confusing. I appreciate your time.